All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Primero Edge Students and Letter Templates webinar. My name is Megan, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Now, over the next hour, we're going to go over student account and details, as well as reviewing letter templates and how to utilize them. Once we start the actual presentation, Anne will be your presenter, and she's going to demonstrate how to pull up and review student accounts and update letter templates. Now these next few slides I'm going to go over will give you a few guidelines on using GoToWebinar from an attendee's point of view. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the GoToWebinar viewer. There you see the actual presentation itself. On the right-hand side of the screen is the GoToWebinar control panel, and there you can ask questions and select your audio mode. You can open and close the control panel with the red arrow on the left of the dashboard. You can choose your audio preference of either telephone or microphone and speakers. If you choose telephone, just use the dial-in information that's listed in your GoToWebinar dashboard. Now, everyone will be muted during this call to avoid any feedback and any background noise, but feel free to ask your questions in that questions pane. Feel free to type your questions anytime throughout the training, and I will be answering questions during training, and we will also be addressing questions at the end of the training as well. And now, without any further ado, I'm going to turn this webinar over to Anne, who will introduce you to Primero Edge students and letter templates.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our overview. As Megan said, my name is Ann, and I will be your presenter today. Now, the purpose of our training today, again, is to learn how to search for students and edit letter templates in Primero Edge. And today we're going to show you how you can easily go through and view student information, as well as access your letter templates that will be activated or used when you're sending notifications to your families in Primero Edge. And to do so, I'm going to quickly navigate to Primero Edge. So I'm just going to pause my screen here, and then we're going to log on to the actual live website. As Megan said, at any time, if you have any questions about anything that we're discussing today, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box at the very bottom of your webinar panel. And that is where you can go through and you can enter in your questions as well. I've included a handout under there as well. If you look in your handout section, there is a handout that says Quick Guide for Letter Templates. And so at the end of the session, please, before we end our session at some point, feel free to click on that handout and download and save that to your desktop if you would like. And that's just a specific guide to give you more details about how to utilize letter templates in Primero Edge. As well, at any point during our overview, if what you're seeing and what I'm saying does not match, or if you have any issues with audio or visual, please let Miss Megan know, and I will make sure to adjust my presentation. When you first log into Primero Edge, you'll be brought to what you see on your screen, which is a dashboard. So those of you who are new to Primero Edge, when you initially log in, this is what you'll see. You'll see a dashboard that will have announcements as well as messages available to you. To the left, you'll see you have your Primero Edge logo, and to the center or to the right, you'll see you have a button that says Amigo. By clicking on Amigo, you will activate our exclusive help tool that can assist you if you have any questions about any of the information that we cover today. Now, Amigo is there to assist you. It's your friend. This is where you can view any announcements in reference to anything that we feel is pertinent information to you in Primero Edge, as well as release notes, which are system enhancements that you can access. So any changes or improvements that we make to the system, you can view here. We also have our library of guides, cards, manuals, and webinars that's available per module. So by selecting that option, you can see here you have access to various areas that you can view. Specifically, if you want to see more in reference to students and letter templates, you can select student eligibility. And then you'll be brought to an area where you can view that same guide to letter templates that I have provided for you in the webinar panel. To begin with our webinar, we'll first start by navigating to the student eligibility module. We're going to navigate the student eligibility module, and then we're going to select patrons. Now, once you select the student eligibility module, you'll see that you have a window here, or a home page. This home page is a overview or a summary of eligibilities, and this will be shown to you again based on permissions. Every user in Primero Edge will see information based on their user role permissions. Your user role permission is basically your job function or your role at your district or at your site. Under each module, there are categories. Each of these are examples of categories, and to select a category, you will simply click on that category name to then expose your functions. And to open and close them, you will simply select that particular category. Again, your functions under your categories are also based on your user role permission. To view students' details, you will simply select the students function, and that will bring you to your students' details search criteria screen. Users have the ability to go through and search for students by site code, site, grade, last name, first name, ID number, date of birth, as well as status. Now you can see you have the option to select all, active or inactive as a status for your students. Your active students are students who are currently enrolled in your district. Inactive students will be students who are no longer active and no longer enrolled in your district. Once a student becomes a part of your district information in Primero Edge, they are a permanent part of that record, and they can only be indicated as active or inactive. You can search for a student by last name by simply typing in the first few letters of their last name and selecting apply. Now this will search for all the students in your district with the last name with these first few letters. If you want to search for a specific student at a specific site, you will then need to select the drop down, and that will then populate that site information. If you want to look for a specific grade level, you can deselect the options and select that grade. Once you've entered in all the criteria that you want to search for, you can simply select apply. Now, if no students are found based on the criteria you entered in, no students will appear in your listing. You can adjust your selections to try to find the student you would like to search for. And if you have any students that match the criteria you have entered, you will see those results listed here below. As you can see, your students are listed here by ID number, last name, first name, site, which is the site that we've selected, grade, date of birth, eligibility, status, and balance. You can also search by first name as well. So if we wanted to narrow down our search and select apply, that will then give me a singular line item for the student that we have searched for. To reset my options, I can simply select the reset button, and that will clear off my criteria selections, and I have the opportunity to create and go and search for another student. Now, if you have an ID number and you don't have a student's name, you also can search for a student that way. You can enter in the ID number simply and select apply, and that student's information will appear as well. So you can search for your students alphanumerically. And again, reset will clear off those selections for you. Now, if you want to search for a student within all of the students in your district, now that's if you have that option or that user role permission, you can do so by selecting all here, or leaving the selections to all and not changing those, and then typing in the letters of a student's name. So this will search within your entire district. Now again, if you have access to all of the sites within your district, you will have this ability. But if you only have site level access, meaning you only have access to your site and your students, you can only search within your site for those students. But if I select the apply button with this selected, this will show me all the students within my district whose last name is Jones. To view your listing, you can go through and you can expand your page size at the bottom by increasing your view here. And so that will give you a listing of all of your students, and then you can go between your pages by either selecting the number or using your arrow keys. Okay. And this is how you can search for your students. Now we can look at a student's details specifically by clicking on the hyperlink associated with their name. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to look for a specific student. I'm going to type in those first few letters of a last name, and I'm going to then select my student. So by clicking on the hyperlink, that will then allow me to view the student's details that I have selected. So by selecting that student's details, I am now brought to that student's details window, and you can see we have our student's name as well as their ID number selected on the screen. At the very bottom, you can see we have a series of tabs that are available. We have particulars, and then we go all the way down to notifications. And this is where you can go through and view information for your students in Primero Edge. This information in your students area under patrons comes from your student information file that's uploaded into the system. And so these details will reflect particulars on your students. For example, our first tab will show us information on our students' home address here. You can see that information, their site, their grade, their homeroom. You can see their ID number and PIN, and also you'll see a summary of their eligibility. This eligibility summary, again, is based on user role permission. And then you'll see a balance. So this student has a current balance of 25 cents on their school meal lunch account. And you can see that this student is active. Okay. If I want to make this student inactive for whatever reason, I can deselect this checkbox and select Save. And that will allow this student to then be recorded or counted as inactive in my system. And you can see here that my green messages indicate that these details have been successfully saved. Now again, the ability to make a student active or inactive is based on role permissions, so you may or may not have access to this based on your function at your district. If I want to make this student active again, I'll simply select the checkbox and save again. Now your ability to make changes in your students' details is consistent through each of these tabs. So wherever you can click into a field, you'll see your blinking cursor, and that will allow you to make changes. Any changes that are made must be saved by clicking the Save button at the bottom right-hand side of your page. Our next tab is our Demographics tab. Your Demographics tab will allow you to view ethnicity, race, gender, as well as language and date of birth information. And to the right, you'll see here you have guardian information. The language area here is important, as this will allow you to see if the correct language for that student and household has been selected. So if you have a student who is Spanish speaking, you can come here and verify that that is selected, as this will let the system know the appropriate notification that needs to be sent to their household, whether it needs to be in English or in Spanish. As well, this guardian information is here in your demographics area, where you can go and you can view as well as add in information for a guardian for a student. So if you want to add in that information, you can. And if you have a home phone number, work phone, or email, you may add that information here as well, and select Save if you want to add in those changes. Our next tab is the Household tab. Now your household tab will give you an overview of students who are the same household. So as you can see here, we have two students, our initial student here, and there is another student that's included in this household. Now they have two different last names. This is very helpful if you're viewing students' details and you want to know what two students are in the same household, if they're possibly siblings. This information is gathered when a student school meal lunch application is processed, and once that application is processed, then the students will be paired in the same household. And you can see the last name, first name, the ID number of the student, the school in which they are enrolled, their grade, and you'll see that there's a household PIN that has been included or associated with this information. If I want to see the additional student's information, so if I want to move to that other student's details, I can simply select the details button and then be taken to that student's details page that I just selected. And if I want to go back to my original student that we pulled up, I can select the details button here. Okay. And that's how you can go back and forth between two students who are in the same household. Our next tab is our eligibility tab. Now your eligibility tab will allow you to view a history of eligibility for the student selected. You can see here, you can have your eligibility listed by status, start date, end date, process date, reason, application or file that was processed, and who processed the file, and then finally you'll see any comments associated with that. Now, this is very helpful, as you can see when you begin using Primero Edge, your students' eligibility will change from every school year based on their eligibility that's processed, either by an application or a direct approval file. So if you have a student whose eligibility has changed, for example, we can see here, we have a status here that was changed to free as a result of the student being homeless. And there is a hyperlink to an indicator as to what was used or to determine this eligibility for this student. If it was an application, you would see a hyperlink here, or if it's a direct approval file that was processed, you would be able to access that information as well. And so you can click either of these options and be taken to whatever method was used for that determination for that eligibility. Our next tab is our Pictures and Notes tab. Your Pictures and Notes tab allows you to view a picture for your student as well as enter in notes. Now, you do have the ability, just as your students are imported into the system, to import pictures for each of your students' details. Now, there is no picture for this student, but you can browse and add in an individual picture, or again, if your district elects to do a picture import, and you will have pictures that will be available for your students. Now, these pictures will be those that will appear on the POS terminal when your students are served. As well, you have the option to enter in notes. And so if you enter in a note for a student, you can then keep record of that here. So I'm going to type in a note for this student. And then once I type in the note and select the Add Note button, you will see that the note will then appear in this previous notes section. Now, your notes are entered in, and they will include a date and a timestamp, as well as the user that entered in that note. As well, in your tab, you'll see that a number has increased here, letting you know that you have one note listed here in this section. So likewise, if I added another note, that number would then increase, and then I at a glance would be able to know the number of notes available for this student. Now, this information is going to be a permanent part of this student's record, so anything in reference to the school meal lunch account that's pertinent to this student can be added here, but it cannot be deleted once it's entered in. Our next tab is our Images and Documents tab. And this is the area where the user can add in an image or a document of something electronically that they wish to include in the student's file. So you can scan a document or either search your desktop and upload a file, and also add in a description and a date for that document. So for example, we have a student here. This student must see the nurse after lunch. If there's a specific reason, they have a health issue in which they must go see the nurse, you can then add that document or add that information in here for reference if need be. Okay. Our next tab is our Allergens and Restrictions tab. Now, your Allergens and Restrictions tab is going to give you the opportunity to customize your allergens and restrictions for your individual students. Now, either your school nutritionist or your nurse, whomever is responsible for entering in this information, has the option to come in and select specific allergens as it relates to students, enter in menu item restrictions, other restrictions in terms of the type of account the student may have, any special instructions, as well as restrict a la carte purchases. Now, your allergens area here will allow the student's account to be protected, so to speak, so that they don't get served any items that may be harmful to them. So if you have a student who has a dietary issue in which they are unable to eat any items that have tree nuts or have any items with milk or any dairy products or consume milk, you can select that here. So any area on this page in which I check is going to indicate a restriction for that student. So this says that this particular student is unable to have any milk or any items or food that has tree nuts, and so these will be allergens that will then appear in what's called a patron alert on the point of service terminal. So when this student's ID number is entered into the POS and they're about to be served, an alert will appear with the details that we're entering in here. So because this student has a milk and tree nut allergen, we can further go through and restrict menu items that have any of these ingredients. So if your menu item has an allergen attached to it, you can then go in and select the add button and then add in a restriction for that menu item. So obviously our student cannot have milk, so we can select that item from our listing here, and that will restrict the cashier from selling that menu item to that student. So if the student comes to the line and tries to purchase a milk, they will receive an informational message restricting that purchase so that the student can then be served a safe and healthy meal. You can remove a menu item restriction simply by selecting the item and removing it from your selections. Other restrictions from this tab include check restrictions. So if you have a student who has given you checks that have been returned, you can then elect to not accept checks on that account by checking this box. Or if you want to make this student's account, again, this is specific to this student, a cash-only account, you can select no charges, which means the student will not be able to use their school meal lunch account, and then you can also indicate the reason for that. If they've exceeded their limit, you can select that option, or if they are possibly on a payment plan. You can enter in any special instructions. So let's say that you have a student who cannot have any snacks. We've indicated that this student cannot have any milk, so you can enter that in further as well. And these are special instructions that will actually appear as text on the patron alert that will appear for this student. Okay, and so you can enter up to 4 rows of data here or information up to 25 characters each. Our final restriction that you can enter in here is your a la carte item restrictions. You can limit or indicate the maximum number of a la carte items a student may purchase per day, as well as the method in which they purchase those items. Remember, everywhere I put a checkbox is going to indicate a restriction. And so this is saying that this particular student can only have a maximum of 2 a la carte items per day, and she can only purchase these items using her school meal lunch account. So we're restricting her cash purchases of any a la carte items, but she can utilize her school meal lunch account any day of the week. So if this student tries to purchase a la carte item using her cash, that will be restricted on this account. And likewise, if the student tries to purchase a third a la carte item using her debit account or school meal lunch account, that will be restricted as well. And so this is just how that will reflect over on the point of service. Once you've gone through and you've made your changes, of course you need to select the save button so that those changes will be successfully recorded for that student's account. Now your allergens and restrictions tab again is going to be updated and changed based on your role and your position in your district, and this can be easily done and configured to make sure that your students are successfully served. This is a very important tab, so I'm just going to pause for a second to see if we have any questions from any of our participants. Megan, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, we had a question from Tasha, and she asked, do they import students into Primero Edge? They use the eTrition software as for their lunch system, and so how would the lunch balances configure and show? I did tell her that students are loaded through the student information file, so that is a student import. If there is balance information on that file, it would be imported. However, it wouldn't be updated on a dynamic basis since Primero Edge and eTrition don't communicate on a daily basis since it is a separate system. But this information is handy if you do utilize the POS module. That information does carry over, but also just any student particulars and demographics and eligibility. Some of those tabs are still pertinent even if you don't have the POS module. But that was it.
All right, thank you, Megan. Yes, that is correct. Again, if you are utilizing the POS terminal, this information will translate over. But if you are not, this is still helpful as you're able to electronically have access at any time to these students' details. Okay, so now that we discussed allergens and restrictions, we can move forward to our enrollment tab. Your enrollment tab will give you an enrollment history for that student. You can see here the school, the grade, the start end date, as well as the activity date for that student. And this will just give you a record of that student's enrollment at different sites. As you begin using Primero Edge, the system will track that information for you. And then our final tab is our notifications tab. Your notifications tab will give you a running history of any notifications that have been generated for a student. You'll see the type of letter, in which we'll talk about in a moment. So whether it was a direct approval letter that was sent to the student, whether it was a reminder letter in reference to the student's balance. You'll be able to see the module that it was sent from. So was this a letter that was sent from point of service or student eligibility? And you'll see the notification method. Was it a letter or was it an email that was generated for that student? You'll see the user who processed that, as well as the date that it was generated on. And then finally you have an icon that will appear that will allow you to view a copy of that letter. So in the event that you need to reprint a notification for a specific student, you can come to their student details, view if a notification has been previously generated, and then regenerate that letter if need be. If you are done going through all of your student tabs, you can navigate back to your students by simply selecting the back button, and that will bring you back to your original search. So if you were looking up your students, you can see our previous search is still available for us to view. You can go through and view your students as you need to. And again, you can also select that reset button to clear off your selections. Okay. And that is how you view your student information in Primero Edge. The next area that we will discuss is going to be our letter templates. So from the student eligibility tab, if you select the configuration category and then navigate to letter templates, that will bring you to the area where you can go through and search for and edit your letter templates in Primero Edge. If you see here, we have here our letter templates window, and you have an option to select a letter type as well as a language. So by selecting this drop down, you can see you have several options to choose from in terms of letter types. Now this is an interpretation of all the letters that are available in Primero Edge for you. These are letters that we do provide for you in English and Spanish, and you can go through and you can edit either of these as you need to. So you can select the letter type that you would like to change. For example, if we select our direct approval letter, and then you can select from the drop down the language that you want to change. And so we're going to select English and then select apply. If you look here, you see now that your templates have appeared in a listing here. You can see that will be shown by template name, language, the date that the letter was last edited on. You can see that, as well as you have a edited by, so you'll know who made changes to that particular letter. And then you have a standard and an active column. Now your standard column is going to indicate your initial letter template as provided by Primero Edge. The system will already have pre-filled for you letter types and templates based on the notifications that can be generated in the system. Now your standard is going to be that initial letter, and this letter is going to be available to you always. It will not be deleted. You can go through and make changes to each letter type, but that standard letter will always remain. And then you have your active column. Active will let you know what letter is currently available for your district. Now again, depending upon your role and your function at your district and at your sites will determine what you're able to see and how you're able to edit these letters. Primarily these letters are edited from a central level. And so your central office will come in and make those changes, but there is the ability for the central office to give a site level person permission to make these changes. So you can see that right now our standard template is the active template, and this is a template that will be available for all sites within this district. There's another example here at the very bottom, and you can see that there is a pencil here. So if I select the edit button, that will allow me to go in and decide what letter template that I create that I want to make active. So if I want this template to be active for my direct approval letter, I can select that and update that, and that will then change that particular option. Okay. So to view my letter templates and to make changes, I can select this standard option here, and then by selecting that hyperlink, that will bring me to what's called a letter editor. And this letter editor will populate with a interpretation of the letter that can be changed and then saved to your listing. Here you can see we have our example of our direct approval letter. At the very top of the page, you have buttons that are available where you can save, you can insert as well. You also have the ability to change your font and also make other modifications. These are grayed out, not until I click within the body of the letter, which you can see that will activate my options to make changes. My blinking cursor is available, letting me know that I have active access to go in and make changes. So if I want to go in and change this long title from notification of approval for free meals, direct approval, if I want that to say notice, I can simply go in and make some basic word adjustments to this document. So if I want to change this to notice of direct approval, I can quickly go in and make those changes. So any content or information on here that's listed, you have the ability to make those changes. At the very bottom, you can increase your view if you want to make that a little bigger. If you want to take this to the parents of, any area that has text, you can go in and make those changes and customize these for your particular district. Now, if you notice here, you have a header, you have an area where you have your student's name and address, you have the body of your letter, and then you also have a salutation at the bottom. There's some text on the screen that is in between brackets. These two brackets here are areas. These are called fields, and these are fields or areas of your notification that are going to be pre-populated as your system is configured. So as Premier Wedge is configured for your district name, the date, your student name and address, as well as other information will automatically be populated into your letters. So as you print each type of letter, there's certain information that will be automatically included for each of your students. So for example, your district name is here. If you want to include or add in additional fields, you can do so. Okay, so if you select a area that you want to insert a field, you can select the Insert Field button, and this will show you the various options, as you can see, that you can add in as additional fields. Okay, so we have our district there. So if you want to add in maybe your district address, you can do that. You can also remove a field. I recommend removing a field, not just deleting, but by selecting it and removing it a field will ensure that that field is removed from your letter. So if we want to then now have our district there, and if we want to add in our district address, we would then move forward, and if you want to put that above or below, and if I want to insert my district address here, I can select that option and it will go at the very bottom there. Okay, so I select Insert Field and I can enter that in. And again, your fields here are going to be very specific, and so you want to make sure you delete them and enter those in accordingly. Okay, so you can enter those in or delete them or remove them however you like. Okay, you can change the size as well as the font of your information. So if I want to change the font, I can do so by selecting from the drop down as well. You can see you can increase or decrease your size. So basic Word functions are available here in your letter template section, but the fields are going to be specific for your particular district. If you notice, these are going to be your district address, your homerooms, there's Medicaid text, however you want to configure and format your letter depending upon what template you're editing, you can go in and do that. So also for another example, you can see your printed information here is going to indicate current date. If you want to include that time or the day of the week, you can also include that in the body of your letter as well. Okay. At the very bottom, you can see here you also have fields or tables that you can view as well. This information is standard on most of your letters. You can also update the information. This has child name, student ID number, and school name. But if you want to change that information, again, you can remove that field, and then you can insert a field in that table here. And these are the options that you can insert in that field. So homeroom was there. So if I want to add in some other information, if I want to add in that student's current status instead, you can add that in there as well and make those changes as you need to. At the the very bottom of your letter, you can see you have your salutation, which will have your determining official. And again, that will be information that will be configured in Primero Edge for you either by your district or at your site, and that will default automatically. Once you've made all the changes that you need to your letter, you can save. Another thing that you can do as well is add in a picture. You can select to the area that you want to add your picture into and select the Add Image button. Now the Add Image button will allow you to navigate to your desktop and select the picture you want to add, and then you can adjust that picture to your liking. And once you have your letter as you would like, and you have all of your spacing the way that you would like to, and you've done all the changes that you have made, you have your letter picture here, whether it's a school crest or your mascot, then you have the ability to save as. Now you must save your template as an original name, so you can add whatever you would like in there to save your template. And then you have the option to set this template as active from this Save dialog box. You don't have to do it here. As we saw earlier, you can utilize the pencil to do that. But if you select Set this template as active and say OK, the system will ask you again, do you want to make this active template? You select yes, and your template will be successfully saved. If you then close out, you will see that your template will now be included on your listing of letter templates for the specific letter type you selected, and now it's changed to active. If you notice, our standard letter is still here. You still have that selected, but if I ever want to go back and change that active status, I can do so by clicking here and selecting that checkbox. And if you notice here, your letter templates are here, your standard examples, but that template that you created has a option to be deleted. Because you created this, you have the option to remove that from your listing and options of letter templates. As I mentioned at the beginning of our overview, there is a guide that is available to you in reference to letter templates that's available in the handout section of your webinar panel. Feel free to, at this time, if you want to navigate there and open and download that to your desktop or print it, you can do so. But if you're unable to, know that that is also available to you in Amigo. So again, by clicking in Amigo, and selecting guides, cards, manuals, and webinars, selecting student eligibility, and you can see that there is a guide to letter templates here. And that just gives you a little bit more information regarding the letter template process and how you utilize them in Primero Edge. You will simply complete the steps I just showed you for each of the letters or any of the letters that you would like to change. You can select any of these, select the appropriate language you would like to change, and then open up your standard letter and make any changes. Okay. Does anyone have any additional questions? Let's check in with Megan to see.
Thank you, Anne. There's no any additional questions, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the questions pane. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Megan. As she said, the question pane is available for you if you have anything that comes up that you have a question about. We do have a few more moments left in our overview, but that does conclude our review. I can quickly go in and review some of the items that we discussed to see if anyone needs time to see if they have questions. So today in our webinar, we did discuss how you can view students' details as well as to how you can go in and edit your letter templates in the system. So by navigating to student eligibility, selecting the patrons category and the students function, you have the option to go in and search for your students by site code, grade, last name, first name, as well as ID number. You can search for your students, and to view your students' detail, you can simply select the hyperlink for their name, and that will bring you to their detailed information. You can view particulars, demographics, household details, all the way up to notifications in reference to students from the students' details page. And so this is also an area that you can make changes to based on your user role permissions. The next area that we discussed today is your letter templates option, and you can go through to your configuration category and select letter templates, and this is where you can access all of the notifications that are generated in Primero Edge and make changes to them accordingly. So you can select the appropriate letter template you want to change, the language, then select apply, and click the hyperlink to open up the letter editor to make any changes. Okay. Alrighty. Well, that concludes our overview of students and letter templates in Primero Edge. Again, we are very happy to be able to answer any questions that you may have. If you have further questions, you can definitely type those in to Megan at the very bottom of your webinar panel. If later on you have questions after we are done with our overview, you can feel free to contact our customer care team at the information provided on your screen. You can call them at 866-442-6030, or you can email them at customercare@primeroedge.com. But note that we do have, in reference to letter templates, a quick guide that's available to you for download at the bottom portion of the webinar panel. All right. Again, I'm just going to check in with Megan one more time before we end our session today.
All right, thank you again, Anne. There's no more questions, but as Anne said, feel free to type them in the questions pane or contact our customer care line as well if you have any follow-up questions after. If you don't have them right now, you can follow up after that, or also in tomorrow's webinar as well, assuming that you are attending that webinar. That one is on direct approvals. Anne?
All right, thank you, Megan. Well, that concludes our overview today. Again, thank you. On behalf of Megan and I, we'd like to tell you thank you for joining us today. We will be holding on the line for a little while longer in case anyone has any more questions. But if you don't have any more questions, feel free to exit the webinar at this time. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.
I do see we have a question from Kristen that she asked about the she missed Monday and Tuesdays webinars. These are being recorded, and you should, within the next week or so, you should have access to a copy of these webinars. Thank you.
Yes, we are recording these, and so these will be available for you at a later date. All right, we see that we still have 2 people still on. If you have questions, Megan and I are still here as we do have a few more moments left in our scheduled time. We are here if you have questions. Feel free to let us know. All righty. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, Megan and I would like to tell you thank you for your time and attention. As she mentioned earlier, recordings of all webinars this week for you will be recorded and provided to you next week at that time. You can go back and view this information as well. Thank you for your time and attention, and we will be now ending our session. Thank you so much and have a great day.